said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
And Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question.
Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, exposed the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, I go. We don't get live in the shine, but then I'm not talking, baby, they get so. Look at the place in your phone. No can you wait your life. Not you wish alone, we better it done. You'll be without it, die. Better than running the boats. Yeah, big real true crime. You know what dark realities every time. This is yeah, big real true crime. You know what dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime. We going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime. We going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi.
Well, hello. Welcome back, everybody, to LTL True Crime. It is Friday night, January 19th, 2024. I want to welcome everybody into the live show. I'm not an attorney, but I found an attorney over here that wanted to join the panel, and I want to welcome in Melanie Little. So welcome to LTL True Crime. How are you?
I'm great, Brian. Thanks so much for having me on your show. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were having a lot of fun backstage, kind of warming up and talking a little bit about tonight. And again, I love your work that you've picked up the Karen Reed case. I think we needed, one for the team over here. And I love the way that you've been kind of dissecting everything. And it's been pretty amazing so far. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about just your background and experience. If people don't know who you are, I'm sure everybody does, but on replay, they may not.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I like to say that I'm a recovering lawyer, because everybody hates lawyers. And if you're a lawyer, you don't like to admit you're a lawyer. So it's like, hi, my name is Melanie Little. I'm a recovering lawyer. So I went to college in Boulder, Colorado. And when I was a senior in college, I took a business law class, and I thought to myself, what can I do to stay in Boulder for a couple more years without having to go and get a job? So I decided to go to law school. It was never like my childhood dream. I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. And so I figured that by going to law school, I could still use all my acting skills, except I would get to write the script and I could perform for a jury, and nobody could tell me I didn't get the part. And nobody could, kick me out of the room, and they had to listen to me. So it's all the same kind of skills. I think a lot of lawyers are frustrated actors. So I spent the entirety of my 30-year career representing victims and survivors of abuse of all kinds, clergy SA, child SA, and other types. I helped injured people rebuild their lives, let's say. So I was always a voice for people who couldn't stick up for themselves, who couldn't speak for themselves, and I was the advocate for them. And I spent 30 years of my career doing that. And then, a couple of years ago, I just decided I needed to pivot because I had litigation against the Catholic Church, the Rockville Center Diocese, and I represented at least 50 or 60 men and women who were victims of clergy abuse after the scandal broke back in 2002. And that was a 15-year fight. I mean, that sucks the life out of you. So after doing all that for such a long time, I decided to pivot. And here we are today. But this is my wheelhouse. This is what I do.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. Like I said, I've been kind of popping in on your Karen Reed streams, and you've just been doing so great and really approaching it, with open eyes. And that's really what we all needed to do, is we just needed to open some eyes here and just let everybody know that, what the Commonwealth here in Massachusetts, in our opinion, saying that, what happened that night at 34 Fairview is just not adding up. And just before we get into this, I just wanted to do this really quick. I actually talked to Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy, a little earlier on tonight, and he wanted to say that he loves what you're doing. He appreciates what you're doing, that you've been involved in this movement, and we all, generally, we love you. We love you that you've gotten involved in this. And he said that he enjoys the segments of you on Court TV when you and Coffin Daffer go back and forth. So,
well, there's only been 2 of them, and it's funny because I knew who she was because she was on some other channels that I used to go on often. And I had been watching Court TV's coverage of this, and I didn't like the way they were spinning it. So when I was on a show with Vinny on a different channel that had nothing to do with Court TV, I said, hey, listen, why are you skewing this way toward Karen Reed? If you ever want to go at it or go toe to toe, call me. And I got a call 3 days later from his producer saying, come on the show. So Coffin Daffer was on the first time, and you don't get to script it. You get a basic outline of what you're going to talk about. And then people are like, why do you say this? Why don't you say that? And then I knew she was coming on the second time. So I was ready. I was ready. And I thank you, Aiden, and best of luck to you. And everybody's rooting for you out here. So I see it. I see all the public support that you're getting. So hang in there, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just talk to you a little bit about Karen Reed, and just how did you hear about this case first, and how did you kind of get involved in dissecting it?
Yeah. Well, I think one of my viewers probably brought it to my attention and said, you really kind of got to look at this case because it's crazy. And I always liked, I don't follow every single case. I don't do 4 streams a day and talk about 10 different, I follow the cases that I'm really passionate about, Most of them have to do with children because I'm a mom and I have 5 kids, and, I've been representing children my whole career. And so when I looked at this case, and I have a lot of friends and family in the area, so I know the area, I know Norfolk County very well, and I've been hearing about what goes on there for 30 years. And so that caught my attention. And then I started digging into it a little bit deeper and watching some of the hearings and just, the actual coverage, not watching anyone else's coverage, because I just wanted to see in the courtroom if it was really as crazy as people were saying. And I just couldn't believe the way this investigation was handled. Everything about it, just my gut told me there's something going on here. This is just not right. And it scared me because if this can happen to somebody like Karen Reed, I think it can happen to any one of us. So.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing that, I try to pull everybody into. And that's what I think the biggest part of the YouTube creator space that we've done is we try to keep putting this out there and saying, look, you have to follow that. You have to open your eyes, because this could be you, or it could be your neighbor, your brother, your sister, or, whatever, a friend. This stuff does happen. And I want to make sure that people understand. And Melanie and I talked about this backstage. I'm not this someone that hates law enforcement. If anything, I'm very pro law enforcement. And if something happens to me, the first phone number I'm dialing, probably besides my mom, is 911 and saying, hey, I need help. And I think people get down on us and they say, oh, you're just bashing law enforcement. It's no, it's look into your community, find out who's running your communities, who's policing your communities. And there's nothing wrong with what is going on, peeling back the onion layers.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, listen, I back the blue 100%. Some of my best friends are law enforcement. My family is law enforcement. I had organized crime task force members sitting at my dinner table growing up. A lot of my dad's best friends, one of them was the first guy to interview the son of Sam. I mean, we have a long relationship with law enforcement in my family. And John O'Keefe is law enforcement too. So, I mean, this isn't just about bashing law enforcement. This is about justice. This is about other people who are not law enforcement that may be involved in some sort of, thing that's happening there. But we do back the blue 100%. So when people call us grifters, because we're talking about this on YouTube, like we don't have lives during the daytime, right? Like this is not our full-time jobs. This is not what we do to survive, but it's something that we do because we're passionate about it. It's a little disheartening. I've never seen such vitriol from any case as I've seen from this case.
It's the strangest, wackiest case. And I can tell you, like, as I've got more comfortable with the community and getting out there and meeting a lot of the people in the Free Karen Read movement, you pull in so many different sex of people, not sex of people. And it's like, people just start coming at you, and then you don't know, like, who do I trust, or who do I talk to in this thing, and then you kind of start to get a feel for it. But it's like, it is very very polarizing. Here you go,
right? And like,
so polarizing.
The twits, the twits, like the spewing hate at us behind a fake name. Like, really? Like, what? Why? I don't understand it. Like, can't everyone just have a respectful opinion? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you started looking at Karen's case, as an attorney, and just kind of looking what you've seen so far, how would you assess its strengths and weaknesses? If how would you kind of analyze this and say, okay, this is how I would attack this? Or
I mean, there's so much, like, just from the initial investigation. I mean, who knows what happened in that house, right? Or outside that house, or in the backyard, or wherever it happened. Nobody knows except for the people who were there. But you have to look at the initial investigation, and everything that happened from the time that body was discovered forward is just, some of it is just beyond belief. Like the way that investigation was handled, the way they had a leaf blower blowing the snow away, the way that the Massachusetts State Police now wants us to believe that the Canton police were completely incompetent because their however many hours long search did not find pieces of the taillight. And every single thing in the timeline that happens is you couldn't script it if you were going to write a movie.
It's the craziest thing.
You couldn't script it. So when I hear people on Court TV or wherever saying, that's ridiculous, it's so ridiculous that you'd have to have 100 people to cover this up, and you think they're all in cahoots and blah, blah, blah. No, you don't need that many people.
No, it's about a handful of people.
A handful.
2 handfuls.
Yeah. And what they tell the police and what their statements are, and then it goes from there. You see it in, organized crime syndicates all the time. People don't rat each other out. People can keep a secret. So, I mean, there's so many holes in this case.
Yeah, I think like some of the theories that got me right away was obviously looking at how the Commonwealth changed 3 times in how John O'Keefe supposedly died by Karen's car. So it was 3-point turn. Then Turtle Boy debunked that, and we showed that it wasn't possible. And then he went out and did a recreation of the 62 feet at 24 miles an hour, debunked that. And I've actually walked that road in front of that house. I mean, it's literally downhill 30 to 40 degrees. So she would have had to back uphill, and it curves. You got to figure there was snow on the ground. It's winter. It's dark as shit. Like, how is this possible? And then, they're saying that her car got up to 24.2 miles an hour when we've had runs at this, and the highest speed that we've seen that you can get to that is 19 miles an hour. And that's fast. I mean, has anybody gotten a car and backed up before, like fast? It's pretty hard to control.
And doesn't that car have an automatic braking system that if a person is behind your car, it's going to stop anyway? And also, where were the tire tracks? Where are the crime scene photos? Why wasn't the scene roped off? Why didn't they come out of there? There's so many things that just strain credulity, as we like to say, that it makes for must-watch, TV every time this case is on, because you just can't believe it. And I think what got me initially when I was watching one of the original hearings was that they weren't turning over any of the evidence. That it took the defense over a year to get basic discovery, stuff that should be turned over immediately, and it makes you feel like they're hiding something. Like, why are they not giving up the evidence?
The thing that was odd to me too is that when the state police went to, so they say that Karen broke her tail light, obviously from hitting John O'Keefe. So they go to Karen's parents' house. They have a conversation with her, and they confiscate her car. Okay,
Mhm.
so they say that her car gets confiscated by the Mass State Police. So it doesn't even go to a Mass State Police crime lab. It goes back to the Canton Police Department,
Who has no
towed on a
jurisdiction, by the way,
yeah,
now.
towed on a flatbed, right? 33 miles from Dighton, Massachusetts to Canton. It gets there, and they say 3 days later, not like immediately. I mean, there's a cop that's dead. So this is the murder weapon that's killed him. We're going to process it 3 days later, and they supposedly find of cocktail glass pieces, because that was the cocktail glass that supposedly John had with him.
Mhm.
And they find it on the back of the bumper along with tail pieces that magically glued themselves to this bumper in transit all the way back to
Right,
the
right.
like what?
In a blizzard. In a
Yeah,
blizzard. And those pieces were still there. What was it, an enclosed flatbed? I mean,
Right.
I don't
No,
even like
we
it.
have photos.
It
We have
strains
photos of it.
credulity. And then there's a hair in the taillight too, but it wasn't really a hair. Then I was a fiber from a snow brush. Like, I can't even keep up. You can't even keep up with all the different versions of this.
Have you ever heard? Let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard in your long year of a career, have you ever heard of of a state police coming in, seizing a vehicle, and then towing it back to the local jurisdiction and letting it sit there for 3 days before it got processed?
That's a better question for somebody who's in law enforcement, because I don't know the chain of command there.
Sure.
I don't know, but I do know that Canton Police lost jurisdiction of the case when Mass Police took over, when he was declared, right? So we also know that there are some players in this with ties to Canton PD. So that's what makes it even more strange.
It's just so odd. I think now, I think people are now starting to get the clearer picture. Obviously, we know that the feds are jumping into this. They have a lot to say. They're investigating the investigation. We saw in court yesterday, which I thought was an amazing win for Karen's team. Unetti was powerful yesterday. He was so clear and on the record. And I love the fact, it was just like, yes, he got it in at the beginning. And before they were going to close court, he got it in again. And he just said, we have the letters, and we will be bringing them to the next hearing on the 15th. If you don't mind, can we play a little bit of that segment and just
Yeah, go ahead. I thought he really got a chance to shine yesterday, which it was great, because oftentimes, Alan Jackson gets the whole spotlight, and because he was on trial, Unetti got to take lead on this, and I thought he really shined.
So good. He was just stellar. If you want me to stop and anything you can clarify. Oh,
Okay.
I do want to ask this. So I did have a question from the audience. I asked them if they had any questions to ask you, just email me. So he talks about the toothy process or toothy process.
Oh, TUI. It's called TUI.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, whenever you want the federal government to release documents or any sort of discovery to you, if they're not a party in the case, they have to go through this process, basically, before they can release documents that don't involve them as a party.
Okay.
So it's not as complex as it sounds, but
Sure.
TUI is the name of the Supreme Court case that started this procedure.
Okay.
Essentially. So
great. Let me just pull this up really quick. Dino's Ghost 499. Thank you so much for the 499. Just says, I loved the point Melanie made regarding no phone data. Sorry, it's a little mixed up. In Norfolk County, can't be both a sword and a shield.
yeah, I was using that about the Google searches, because they're trying to say that there's no way that Google search was made at 2:27 a.m. And by the way, their expert is Trooper Guarino. Like, what expertise does he have in cellular forensics, first of all? And second of all, like I said about the Brian Walsh case, like, how are you going to say in this case, his Google searches were 100% accurate? They're timestamped, but for Karen Reed,
not
they're
in
not.
this case.
They don't.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we'll get to Jackson because I want to talk about the extraction as well. And I want to play that segment, but let's play this for everybody. And then we had a response from the Commonwealth. We'll pull that document up and read through that too.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, God, this segment's so good.
4 letters back and forth between the Norfolk DA and other agents. letters consisting of a back and forth between the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts regarding whether the U.S. Attorney would release any information to the DA about their investigation. Category 2 are 4 letters back and forth between the Norfolk DA and other agencies, wherein the Norfolk DA is complaining about the fact that they're being investigated and asking for the U.S. Attorney to be taken off that federal investigation. And finally, category 3 is 1 letter from DA Morrissey to the new special agent in charge of the FBI, asking him to have his agents speak to the state police who are under DA Morrissey's command. To be clear, there is no confidential grand jury information in those letters. There are no records, orders, and subpoenas relating to any grand jury that should be kept under seal. There are no policy positions being developed or discussed. There is nothing in those motions that's the proper subject of a protective order. And I suspect that is why the U.S. Attorney has no objection to those letters being revealed to the public. That should end this court's inquiry. The Commonwealth has not met the legal standard necessary for the issuance of a protective order, and this issue should be put to bed. The letters are not the proper subject of a protective order. They should be unsealed forthwith. But assume for a moment that this court decided otherwise and issued the protective order sought by the Commonwealth. I ask this court, what good would that do? How effective would that be? The answer is, it would not be effective at all. And in many ways, it would be meaningless. I say that, Your Honor, with no disrespect intended. I say that because that's the reality of this situation. Immediately after our last court appearance, as I promised when I last addressed this court, we filed a motion for sanctions against District Attorney Morrissey, including a request that his office be disqualified from continuing to prosecute this case. I expect that motion will be heard on our next court date. And I ask this court to consider what that hearing will look like. That hearing will prominently feature the contents of all of the 8 letters that are at issue here today. The specific content of those letters is one of the grounds that gave rise to our motion for sanctions in the first place. In fact, our motion for sanctions liberally quotes from those letters. And I assume that that is the reason that our motion for sanctions is currently impounded by this court as well. But it is clear from those letters that District Attorney Morrissey is well aware that he's the target of a federal investigation as a result of his conduct in this case. Those letters prove that he knew that, even before the U.S. Attorney ever confirmed that there even was an investigation. And Your Honor, on that score, something very important has come to light just yesterday that directly bears on this issue. The Norfolk DA's office and the Karen Reed defense team participated in a conference call yesterday with a representative from the U.S. Attorney's office. The U.S. Attorney confirmed during that conference call, confirmed for both parties, that not only has there been a federal investigation of this case, but it is ongoing. It's not over. It continues. The DA had this confirmed for them just yesterday, right from the horse's mouth. That means, Your Honor, that District Attorney Morrissey and his office are targets of a federal investigation. And please consider what that means for the upcoming hearing on our motion for sanctions. The anticipated nature of that hearing bears directly on the ruling that this court will make today on the Commonwealth's motion for a protective order to keep the 8 letters impounded. We have the 8 letters. We've seen them. We've read them.
She's like,
we are using them.
Hold on one second.
The genie
She's like,
cannot be put back in the bottle.
I want to rewind that too, because I love he says the genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
yeah, but before that, she was like, I don't have the letters. Does anybody have the letters? And then poor Lally had to go into his file and he was like,
Had them.
Shit. All right, here's the letters.
He had them.
How come she didn't have them? I don't understand. They were filed. She's the one who impounded them. Weren't they part of the exhibits of that motion that she impounded? She has access to it in her computer. Poor guy. I felt kind of bad for Lally yesterday. It was kind of like, oh, damn, I gotta here you go, Judge. Because he knows it's not gonna look good.
He's not a fan favorite. I can tell you that.
I know he's
Call it
not, but
Lunch
that's
Buck
what even
Valley.
made me feel like a little bit sad. I was like, oh man, like
No.
he's already getting kind of like he's like a punching bag, and now it's kind of like, oh man. Almost like something you'd say like in a cartoon, like, oh man, oh shucks. All right, Judge, here you go.
Let me ask you a question, because I couldn't say, I just couldn't. I think that Karen Reed is so blessed with the attorneys that she has. I mean, they, to me, I like, I, I keep going. If this goes to trial, which I don't think it's going to, I think it's going to be, but I can only imagine the cross-examination from Munetti and Jackson, where they just tear into the witnesses and you just see tears. I mean,
I mean, she's very lucky that she can afford this
Mm.
defense because look, if it was, any of us or somebody who had no money would be stuck with a public defender who's got 7 million cases and they can't really pay attention to this
Yeah.
one. I mean, the only reason that she's able to afford this kind of a stellar defense is because she's got the money to pay for it. And that's why she was trying to get some of that bail money back. They're
Yeah.
holding $80,000 cash of her money that she needs to pay for experts and attorneys and everything else. But a regular person, like a nobody, like a bus stop person, would be either still sitting in the clink because they can't afford the 80,000 in cash that it cost her to get out on murder charges. I mean,
You know who's
yeah,
been
she's
doing it?
blessed, but that's because of who she is, because she's got the money.
It's been the movement. A lot of
Mhm.
the movement has raised that
Well,
awareness,
that's
the Big
amazing.
Karen Reed
That's
movement.
amazing that people want to see.
Almost close to $300,000 to help her.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
really, really great. The movement has been strong. And I just want to play that little segment really
Yeah.
quick. Let me just pull this $20 super chat up. Thank you so much. She says, here's for the clip of Auntie Bev when she crushes over the Boston magazine attorney. It was so pathetic with that voice. Yes, she had a little crush on him yesterday. But I want to play the genie in the bottle. I want to ask you a question, because I found that segment so powerful, and I like to analyze things.
Mhm.
How does an attorney prepare for that? Is that something that they'll kind of run through, or is it just come
Prepare
naturally?
for arguing a motion orally?
Yeah,
Well,
like
it's
the way
based on papers. So you've already put your papers in,
Right.
right? So you're arguing what's in your papers essentially. And you better know the case law too. If you're citing cases, which everyone, you have to have some case law to support your position. You better know the cases because the judge might ask you questions. A lot of jurisdictions do not do oral argument on motions. They take it on papers and the judge issues a decision. So it's interesting that we're getting to see these motions argued, but that's how you argue. Just like we get on a show and do a show for 2 hours without scripting it, you know your case so well and you know what your arguments are that you don't even really need a lot of prep because it's all in the papers and you know your case backwards and forwards. So you can get up and pretty much argue about anything.
I just
Hopefully.
love that he got that on the record. He just crushed it and said, I think he was just like, I'm going for it today. I'm just going to get it on the record.
Oh, well, wait till you hear what he says at the end.
Yeah.
That's the best soundbite.
What that means for the upcoming hearing on our motion for sanctions. The anticipated nature of that hearing bears directly on the ruling that this court will make today on the Commonwealth's motion for a protective order to keep the 8 letters impounded. We have the 8 letters. We've seen them. We've read them. We are using them. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle. Those letters are powerful evidence that we will use to publicly support our motion for sanctions. My client is entitled under the Constitution and the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights to present as effective a defense as she can to these false charges. She's entitled to lawyers who will zealously represent her within the bounds of the law. She is entitled, in short, to have the contents of those letters made plain to this court, both in writing and during public oral argument on our motion for sanctions. And that argument will happen in public, whether this court issues a protective order or not. The Commonwealth is moving for a protective order for these letters after revealing part of what they contain. But the Commonwealth wants to keep the remainder of the letters hidden because those letters contain information that will embarrass District Attorney Morrissey and his office. The letters demonstrate that he's a target of a federal investigation for what his office has done to Karen Reed. So, Your Honor, because the Commonwealth has not met the necessary legal standard for a protective order, and because a protective order would be effectively meaningless here in any case, this court should deny the Commonwealth's motion.
Wow.
All right. Is there
Wow.
And Lally had no opposition to that. He was just kind
Yeah.
of like,
Well, yeah.
yeah, I mean, what could he say really at that point? So they withdrew their motion today because
Yeah, I'm gonna
really,
pull that up.
what else could they do? They had no other choice.
Yeah, let's
The
pull that up.
longer they try and protect them, the more damning those letters are going to seem.
So this is what we got from the Commonwealth motion to withdraw a protective order. I'll just read through it really quick. Now comes the Commonwealth respectively moves the Honorable Court issues an order vacating the protective order pertaining to the correspondence. A total of 8 letters between the Norfolk District Attorney's Office and the U.S. State's Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts and Norfolk District Attorney's Office and the U.S. Department of Justice. It goes on to say, while the Commonwealth's motion to protect the order is premised on statute in the law, in the case law, the Commonwealth now moves for the release of all correspondence and, oh boy, help me with that word. Blah, blah, blah,
Where are we?
here.
Ameliorate. Ameliorate.
you.
I mean, it's like to
Ameliorate.
destroy. Ameliorate.
Thank you. I'm like, what is that? And prejudicial effects the counsel false impression to the court and the public by nature of substance of the letters in content with the federal investigation. The United States Attorney's Office has indicated that they do not object to the public disclosure of these letters and took extraordinary steps to release the statement to rectify the misstatements by Attorney Yannetti on January 18, 2024, stating, "We are aware of the hearing in Norfolk Superior Court in the Karen Reed matter. In connection with this matter, at no time has the U.S. Attorney's Office named any person or entity as a target of the investigation to anyone. To prevent further attempts by the defense to mischaracterize the Commonwealth's correspondence as an example to materially prejudice to the Commonwealth to threaten integrity of the judicial system as a whole, the Commonwealth respectively moves to withdraw its previous position for a protective order and let the correspondence speak for itself." Respectively submitted, Michael Morrissey, District Attorney. Break it down in layman's terms for us.
Basically, we don't oppose the release of these letters anymore because we realize that we're pretty much screwed and they're going to come out anyway. And the harder we fight, the worse it's going to look for us. And by the way, we're just going to stick in that barb in there at the end saying that they corrected. But if you go back to that for 1 minute, it's almost more, it's more important to me what they did not say, because what they said is that, you know, we're going to correct the record that the Attorney General or the U.S. Attorney did not say that there was any specific target of the investigation, right?
The bottom here, you want to
no
say?
time has the U.S. Attorneys named any person or entity as a target of an investigation to anyone, right? Because Yannetti said, well, Marcy is clearly the target. We know Marcy is the target. What he also said, which they did not correct, by the way, is that he said that in that conference call, he said the U.S. Attorney told him, and I wrote this down.
He actually, I'm sorry to cut you off real quick,
Yeah.
Melanie. He talked to Tim Bradle, who's Aiden Carney's attorney, and Tim Bradle was on a local station here, Howie Carr, just after, and he wanted to make sure that was clear. And from my understanding, he said, I never specifically said that Morrissey was the target. It was just they were, you know, the DA's office was being of the target.
Right.
They're trying to say, if I'm understanding that specifically, it's Morrissey, correct? Or am I wrong?
Well, no, that's what they're trying to correct here.
Got
They're
it.
saying it is not. We did not say that. But what Yannetti said something else that I found even more interesting.
Sure.
Yannetti said that during that conference call with the U.S. Attorney, the U.S. Attorney said to them, both of them, Lally and him, we're going to go through the. I quoted this because I want to get it right. He notified both parties that they will be going through the TUI process. That's where the TUI process comes in, to take the extraordinary step of releasing information from their investigation to the parties in this case that directly bears on this case. That is almost unheard of, because in good conscience, the U.S. Attorney said, in good conscience, we cannot allow this case to go to trial. They did not correct that statement. They did not say, we never said that in good conscience we can't let this case go to trial. They didn't correct that. All they corrected was, oh, we never said it was Morrissey. So that to me is very telling what they chose to address and not address. So,
So I had a question though. This is a good segue because this question is going to kind of come into what we're talking about right now. So a question from a viewer, they asked, and they wanted to ask you your opinion on this. If the FBI has enough evidence and facts from their investigation into the investigation that lead them to believe the other individuals involved, meaning the people inside 34 Fairview were involved, could they use that information to start a new investigation or case? Can the feds?
Yeah, they could, sure. Sure, but with the way that the evidence was mishandled from the get-go, it might be very, very difficult to prosecute anybody else,
Hmm.
unless somebody flips,
Yeah, and
unless
that's
there's an
funny that you said
eyewitness,
that.
because the forensic evidence, well, the cell phone data, that's all circumstantial evidence. You know,
True.
people say, oh, it's all circumstantial, but most evidence is circumstantial, unless you have uh, video of someone committing a crime. Pretty much everything else is circumstantial.
Hmm.
Right? So, yes, absolutely. It could be to bring another case against somebody else, but you're going to need, I think, more than what they're able to uncover at this late stage. But nothing's impossible.
Um, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought for a second.
I mean, they may also wind up dismissing the indictment against her, saying there was no basis for this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Oh, talking about people flipping feds. Listen, we've heard cases that once the FBI gets involved and they start questioning people, a lot of
Mhm.
people start speaking up and flipping. I'm following a case right now of a YouTuber actually, that basically took close to about $5 million in money that he was basically using for this business to fund his life. He was a watch YouTuber, and he was selling high-end wristwatches and building his channel off of that, making content. Well, all the watches that were coming in, he was selling them and taking the money from that and funding his lifestyle for this YouTube kind of persona that he had. I'm pretty sure, because this went federal, he got nailed for mail and wire fraud, like almost 16, 17 counts on both. He's probably going to be in prison for the rest of his life if he doesn't take a plea.
Wow.
Usually I think Fed cases probably go all the way.
Well, at least to go to Club Fed instead of,
Right.
state prison.
But I'm pretty sure his team that he was with, I'm sure the feds went and talked to them. They probably were involved, but said, hey, if you know something and we want the big guy, they
Mhm.
probably flipped. And that may happen in this case. Something like that may happen.
It
Federal
may,
pressure.
because yeah, that's perjury is really big deal.
Right. Can we talk about the phone extraction and the Cellbrite and the four other programs that they use to extract information off Jen McCabe's phone? And I want to play this segment from Jackson. I'd love to go over this and break it down a little bit because I love just hearing him talk. I always call him
Action Jackson.
Action Jackson.
That's the best shirt, by the way. You should pull up the merch. Everyone has to see this merch. It's a picture
Oh,
of Alan Jackson. I call him smooth as butter, and you call him and it's the greatest sweatshirt ever.
yeah, I'll pull it up after we get to the segment. I appreciate it. Yeah, that kind of came. I've just always been calling him Action Jackson. So, and his little statement. This one here, I'll play it. I love this.
It makes absolutely no sense. That is the Commonwealth grasping at straws. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
I have that actually on the back of the shirt. Which
That's good. It's double-sided.
And I'm working on a Unetti, which would be this one.
We have the 8 letters. We've seen them. We've read them. We are using them. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
So that's going to be my next one. The genie cannot be put back in
Yeah.
the bottle. All right, let's play
It's
this. I absolutely love this segment. Jackson just thunders away, and it's just unbelievable. I love watching these two lawyers. And listen, let's not discount Elizabeth Little as well. She's been doing a fantastic job, and she's part of that team too. So,
with regard to the Rule 17, our question would be, what is the Commonwealth so desperately afraid of? Why are they so desperately afraid of us getting the materials, the documents, the data, and the physical phone that we've sought, respectively, under the Rule 17 motion for Brian Albert's phone and the data associated therewith for Jennifer McCabe's cell phone data as it pertains to the cell records? What are they afraid of? They seem to be desperately fearful that we're actually going to get to the truth of what actually happened. on January 29th, 2022. In their motion, or in their opposition, they've indicated, Your Honor, there's nothing to see here. All of this was dealt with back in September of 2022, and there's nothing new here. It's clearly not a regurgitation of the 2022 motion. It's a completely different set of facts that we have and we've presented before the court. How long to die in cold? Spelled Haas long to die in cold. A search conducted by Jennifer McCabe at or before 2:27 in the morning. That's a very, very nuanced and very important distinction. The 2:27 a.m., 2:27 and 42nd a.m. search, or timestamp associated with that search, is the timestamp associated when Safari was exited out of. So she could have made the search and did make the search at some point just prior to 2:27 in the morning, some 3.5 hours before John O'Keefe was found dying in the cold in front of Brian Albert's house. That's new fact number one, the Apple Health data that establishes that John O'Keefe took 80-odd steps at or between 12:21 a.m. and 12:24 a.m., that he climbed the functional equivalent of 3 flights of stairs. Fact number two. Fact number three is John O'Keefe's phone pinged at or near the location of Brian Albert's house. That's not a coincidence that Brian Albert has 3 floors in his home, or did at the time. John O'Keefe's injuries, the injuries to his arm. Although those were mentioned in September of 2022, we didn't have Dr. Sheridan's report. This court has already opined on the relevance of Dr. Sheridan's report and his opinions and conclusions. That's new evidence. It establishes unequivocally that given the fact that those are dog bite, dog scratches, and those occurred at or near the time of his death, that means that those scratches occurred inside the house. Those bites occurred inside the house. Those injuries occurred inside the house. The dog was, according to Mr. Albert's own testimony, the dog was never outside the house. He was never in the front yard. Additional new information, 7 separate phone calls from Jennifer McCabe's phone to Brian Albert. Counsel had made a very bold statement. There is no evidence in his moving papers. There's absolutely no evidence of any phone calls between Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe on January 28th or January 29th. That is provably false. There were no fewer than 7 phone calls that we can prove, and we believe that the cell phone records of Jennifer McCabe will likely prove other calls as well. The court has to understand, I think, and it's important to understand, not only do we have information that she deleted materials from her phone that we can find that are deleted in the Celebrite extraction, the Axiom extraction, the Art X2 extraction, the Belkasoft extraction, the Sanderson extraction. Those are all different tools that our expert has used that established every one of these calls were made.
So here's something crazy about this, because I've been going back to the very beginning, because, you know, when you go through a case and it's so long like this, you tend to forget stuff. So we've been going back and listening to the hearings. We caught that. I think we missed it on the first, you know, everybody kind of missed that or maybe forgot about it. And we're like, 5? Like they can extract from 5 different apps to show that these calls and these that these Google searches were erased. I mean, I just don't get it. Why, you know, in going back to the people that think we're crazy, I think you're crazy if you can't see what's happening
I mean,
here.
why are you deleting stuff? Like, isn't that consciousness of guilt? I never delete anything on my phone. I'm not going back and deleting phone calls unless it's something I don't want somebody to see, right? I mean, I know people who delete text messages every time they get a text message, they delete it. I think that's whack. Like, who does that? Nobody does that. So, you know, something else that I found so interesting is I went back earlier today, I was reading the appellate papers, and I was reading the Reed appellate brief, the first one. And there were 17 phone calls between Jen McCabe and John O'Keefe on the 29th after midnight. 17 phone calls. And she deleted every single one of them. And they only got them because they got John O'Keefe's phone. Like, I have questions. What was that about?
Have you heard the 911 call?
I've heard the one where the phone dropped in the back seat. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But like, who's calling who 17 times after midnight on the 29th when his body is found at 6 a.m.? Like, that's right.
Yeah. A little weird.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point. People only delete things in their phone if they don't want people to see it. And the thing
Right.
that a lot of just average people don't think that, oh, well, if I just delete this, it's gone. No, it's still going to be there. It's still
Yeah.
going to be there.
Yeah. It's like I tell my kids, like, just don't put stuff on the internet. Just because you delete it off the internet doesn't mean that it's gone forever. It's not.
Right.
There's this thing called the Wayback Machine where people can go and find out what the internet was like on a certain day, and everything you did will be there forever. So just don't do it.
Yeah. All right, let's hear a little bit more from Jackson.
There were also deletions that we can't account for. What do I mean by that? Other people's phones. There was another call made to Julie Albert. She testified to a call having been received from Jennifer McCabe to Julie Albert. She testified to that, and there is no data in the Celebrite extraction in Jennifer McCabe's phone to support that. That means that call was deleted and not found. Where would we find that verification? In Jennifer McCabe's cell phone records. There was a call made apparently to, or communication made to Karen Reed's phone. We know that to be a fact. It came from Jennifer McCabe's phone. That also was not recovered in the Celebrite extraction. Where would that phone be? Where would that call or communication be verified? In Jennifer McCabe.
So just to let you know, Melanie, that is Aiden's liaison right now. She's relaying that. So Aiden's listening. Thank you so much for listening, Aiden. I had a small, quick conversation with him earlier, and I did let Melanie know at the very beginning of the stream that you love the back and forth with Coffin Daffer, and you appreciate her work on this case because it's all about, educating people. So
yeah, that's all we can do.
Absolutely. So Monica J, she says, thank you both for covering this case. Dream team. Melanie, you were so great yesterday. Thank you so much.
Here's what I have a question for you. So somebody said at the beginning of the stream, and I don't know who it was because I don't have the power on my end to highlight the comments, but somebody said, how long before Brian and Melanie break the internet? And now I'm wondering, because there's 1,100 people watching, how many of them do you think are hate viewers? What percentage of what's the over under on the percentage of the 1,100 people watching that are hate viewers?
You type the percentage in the chat, everybody. We want to know. And by the way, I just want to just pause really quick before I get to this and just tell Melanie, thank you so much for doing this again. I appreciate it. We've had such a great time so far. And if you want to support Melanie, I have her link up to the top of the chat there. You can just click on that. Please subscribe to her channel, and all her affiliated links are over there. She has great merch too. And what's your saying on your channel that you always say?
What say you? I have that. I have a strange credulity, because that was something that the lawyers kept using in the last.
You say, come at me in the comments too?
Come for me in the comments. Yeah. Yeah. And then somebody did, but on Twitter, I'm like, no, I'm not a twit. I don't go on Twitter. Come for me in my comments.
And then Steph says, hi guys, it's Drains. Yeah. And the hoodie shipped out today, Melanie. They'll be sold. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Thanks for the 10. All right, let's go back to Jackson really quick. We'll just let him finish this segment and opine on
cell phone records. The screenshot of Brian Albert, that's Brian Albert's contact information. We know that there was a screenshot taken on Jennifer McCabe's phone of his contact information. There's only one reasonable explanation for why she would take a screenshot of Brian Albert's contact information, and that would be to conveniently share that contact information with another person. We know the first half of that the screenshot was taken and deleted. We don't know the second half. But this information would reveal it, and we're trying to verify that. Again, this is all new information that was unknown to the defense in or around September of 2022 when we filed our first motion. This is very much not a motion to reconsider. It's a completely new motion for summonses pursuant to Rule 17. The Commonwealth has disputed nearly every one of the facts that I've presented this morning, and nearly every one of the facts that has been presented in the attached application. In doing so, the prosecution has clearly created the issues that have to now be resolved by the court The court has the competing affidavits. I believe that we have made a valid showing of relevance, materiality. We have to have the information in order to propound and present the third-party culpability defense, which the court noted in its ruling on the Rule 17 motion associated with the dog records, the animal control records. That's exactly what we're trying to do in furtherance of that with relation to Brian Albert's phone and the data associated therewith, Jennifer McCabe's phone, which we already have, and the concomitant information surrounding that phone, which would be her cell phone records. We know that the cell phone is not complete. Her records would be more complete and paint a more complete picture. We know that Brian Albert, and by the way, there's nothing close to a fishing expedition in this case, which is what that's the safe harbor that counsel constantly runs to when they don't have anything else to argue. Oh, no, you can't let the defense actually propound their.
I'll let you answer that one, Melanie.
No, I don't get that. Sometimes I get Michelle Pfeiffer, which I love.
I
I'll take that any day of the week. But no, you mean Candace Bergen? No, I don't know, but I'll take that too. Hey.
So what do you think here? It's just like, come on. Like,
here's what I think, and there's all these, people with a lot of time on Twitter. The thing that I guess they're all on Twitter. Maybe they're on Reddit too, because I don't know. I don't check either one because I like you. I actually have a life that involves something other than this, and reading my hate comments. But where is the evidence? Karen Reed hit him with a car. Like, where is that evidence? Because that is the evidence that is glaringly absent from all analysis. Those, and I debunked. I saw you did the dog bite show that I did.
So good.
And I've handled accident cases for 30 years.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even fit under that Lexus.
Yeah.
It's impossible that would have been caused by glass, this shattered, mysterious cocktail glass that all of a sudden was on the scene. They never went in the house to see if there's glasses. Like, where is the actual? There's no pictures of any tire marks. He would have had to have been thrown 12 feet. You got Ryan Nagel, who's a disinterested non-party witness. I don't even know how long after the death they took his statement. But I'll tell you what, Karen Reed's team did is right away they got Lucky's statement within the month of February 22. So, it strains credulity that nobody ever questioned Lucky. So for the prosecution until years later.
Here's some things that I put together. So they say that taillight hit John O'Keefe. You're seeing a man that's probably about that's a soft target that's going to hit. Mm-hmm. How the hell are you breaking that taillight? I mean, it's just
because the cocktail glass is like a magic saber or something. Like, I mean, it just defies physics. It defies logic. Like, what? He's holding a glass in his hand, and it hits the glass, and then the glass breaks the taillight, and then there's the glass is embedded in there, and then the taillight breaks, and then what? Then she backs over him, and how does his arm get hurt? There's just nothing. It's like we sit here and we try and analyze this, and it just defies logic. And then these people on the other side, and I say, come on my show. And she says today, oh yeah, I'll come on your show once Karen Reed's in jail. I'm like, no, that's not the point. Like, come on now and really tell me what you genuinely think. Because the theory of the Commonwealth has changed so many times that I don't even know what they think happened now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's changed like 3 times because first it was a 3-point turn, which was debunked by Turtle Boy. So the 3-point turn was debunked. And then he went and debunked the 62 feet at 24.2 miles an hour. Have you seen that video?
No.
You want to see it?
Yeah, sure. Somebody said in the chat here, something about he was drinking beers, and I noticed that too. He was drinking beers. Everyone says he's drinking beers. Beers don't come in a cocktail glass. But do you have the video of him walking out of the bar with the glass in his hand? Because there's a lot of mention of that, but I've never seen it.
I've just seen the video of them with a couple of people at the bar, and they're just kind of chatting, and
he's got a belt on, like they're kind of like cozy, and she's got his arm around him, and they look lovingly at each other. Yeah. And you can see his belt, but the belt is now gone.
Yeah,
so I haven't seen this video of him walking out of the bar with a cocktail glass because he was drinking beers. So I don't know.
This video is like
that's the way you guys do it in Boston. You serve beer.
No, it's definitely not how we're drinking beers here.
I don't think so. But your bars close at midnight. What's with that?
Yeah.
I was like, they're closing? Wait, what time is it? Midnight? They close
Yeah,
bars
'cause
at midnight?
what do you close at 2 there?
4.
4. See, I don't drink, so
4 a.m. I mean, I don't either, but I know, like, when I was in college, like, the bars in New York closed at 4.
yeah.
Who knows after the lockdown if everyone sort of they don't do that anymore, but
So this will give you actually a perfect view of Fairview. Like I said, you can see the curve in the road, and
Mhm.
it's you can't see the grade yet, but you will see it as
so
Aiden's
that's the
back
fire
there.
hydrant in
Yes.
front of the house right
Yep.
there. Okay.
Karen, so okay, we marked 62 feet off, right?
He's hilarious, by the
So
way.
that's where Karen Reed started. That's where the back of her car started, okay? And you see the line down there, the other line, that's where he got hit.
The curve.
Okay, so I mean that's 62 feet. So we are to believe, right, that the freaking car so it went, first of all, it curves. Notice how the road curves? So I hit the bumper. You guys can see down there the mark. I hit the bumper the first time I did this. I reached 14 miles an hour the first time I did it. I just did it again. I got up to 27. No, I apologize. 17 miles an hour, right? I got up to 17 miles an hour. Now, that lady yelling at us. And then, but 24, man, I mean, when I went from 14 to 17, I was a big jump. 24, it curves. Like I hit the fucking curb. There's no way if she, so let me guess, go stand down there, like where John was. So like, just, so Rich is John's height too, right? So she drops him off, right?
Not in the driveway, by the way.
And then for some reason he stands there.
So here's another weird thing too. Not like when I drop someone off, I'm pulling into the driveway and letting them in. Supposedly she pulled up where they're standing right now.
Right.
And
Right.
he got out and fucking walked that direction. Oh, sorry. He walked that
Well,
direction.
yeah. You can, I mean, it's your channel. You can curse. That doesn't offend me to
trying to
curse. I
be
just, I have a
acting.
PG channel because my viewers,
Yeah,
like it like that. But like she would pull up in front because it's starting to snow. She pull up in front of the driveway so he gets out. Then she pulls up waiting for him to text her to say, come on in. It's cool. Right. So I don't think that this was planned. Like anybody was going to ambush him or anything because they invited her to come in too. Right.
Mhm.
So then she pulls up and she's getting pissed because now he's not texting her back. And she's like, well, is it cool? Is it cool? And he's like, not responding. So she's probably all pissed and she's like, forget it. I'm leaving.
Going home.
Or she had a stomach ache or whatever. Cause I've heard two different versions of that story that she left in frustration or that her stomach was bothering her and she didn't want to go.
Right.
But either way, hell hath no fury like a woman who does not get her text responded to promptly. So I could understand her leaving there.
Like, peace.
And then
Bye.
calling him 47 times or whatever, because now she's even more pissed that he's not responding to her.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I can totally see that. It's
middle of a snowstorm. We
Oh,
just
I'm sorry,
stand
Natalie.
there.
I cut you off. Were you
No,
gonna say-
no,
okay,
that's what
yeah.
I'm saying. Like it doesn't strain credulity that
Karen
happened.
pulls up here. She gives him time to, because he's all mad and she wants to kill him. and what? Hey, John, I want to kill you. I fucking need you. Can you just stand right there for like a minute so I can pull forward 62 feet and then gun it in reverse? And then the car's coming at you. And so the car comes back here, right? She somehow, I don't know, she doesn't turn because they didn't say anything about any tire marks on the curb. I just made tire marks on the curb. Look at this shit. So John is standing right here where the car comes back and he just doesn't go in. Like, why did she drop him off right here? We've been over this. Why did she drop him off right here and not in the driveway, right? And he just stands here. And he's like, yeah, just hit me because I feel like dying today. And then, again, see this right over here? Those are my tire marks.
Yeah.
Because I didn't turn it. I didn't turn the wheel. So I hit the freaking curb. So Karen's car is a tank. So she hits him, right? And somehow his body goes that way. Maybe he tried to get out of the way, because that's what they're saying. And they just knocked it that way. And then, so then what? How does she not run him over? Like, so it says it keeps going. So she hits him with the back of her car.
Look how far away that is. That's so far
That's
away.
how far away it is, right? And just boom, hits him there. How the hell does he get the head injuries?
And the arm wounds, right?
And the arm wounds.
Dog bites.
It's like
Say
it's all grass.
he ran him over, but the undercarriage got him. But it couldn't, according to this theory, he just go there flying. You know,
Yeah,
shoe comes off, hat comes off,
yeah. How do you get the scratches? How do you get the scratches that way?
dog bites.
The dog bites, whatever. Oh no, whatever. The abrasions, I'm not a medical examiner, so what do I know? But that's fucked up. So
Doesn't make sense.
we're gonna try it again. We're gonna try doing this one more time. You want to do one more time?
Yeah.
Let's see what we can reach this time. Let's go.
Gunning.
Let me see. I'll go to the point where he's going to back up. It just doesn't make sense.
For like she's Mario Andretti now. Like, you know what? And like you could see the curve in that road. There's no way that she could have come close enough to the curb without being like a NASCAR driver, who's very experienced at that. Because
And look at the hill.
like he goes into the middle of the road when he tries to go straight.
And it's on a hill. I mean, when you walk that, it's funny because it's kind of deceiving in the video, but when you're actually there walking it, and I've walked it a million times, and it's like, shit, this is like a hill, and that road curves really quick too. I mean, just doesn't...
and what like, where's the motivation for that? Like, what's the motive? You know, they're not married. She's not coming into any life insurance policy. Like, what even is the motive here?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
And then to charge her with murder, that's what really got me, I think, on this case. Like, wait a second. If this did happen, it was a tragic accident. Maybe it's vehicular manslaughter or something, a lesser charge. If she was drinking, which everyone says she didn't appear drunk, right? But now all of a sudden the next day she's on an involuntary hold and they have no warrant, but they take her blood. I got issues with that too. So I don't know if those blood results would even come in. I don't know about Massachusetts law and what they allow in, but that's interesting. And then they're extrapolating it back. Who's to say she wasn't all pissed off at him? She goes home, she starts drinking a bottle of vodka or whatever. There's no evidence that she was drunk at the time of this alleged hit, and they're going to have a major problem with that. And you can extrapolate all you want and say that she was 0.09 in the morning, but you extrapolate that back to midnight, and now it's between 1.3 or 0.13 and 0.29. Like that's a hell of a range there. I don't know who that expert is with the extrapolation, but she could have had a drink when she went home.
Well, and then the other thing too that kind of stuck with me too is that during the 911 call, when you hear it, you can hear Karen frantic. And two, when she leaves John's house to go back to Fairview, you can see her booking, because now there's a new clip of the extended video of her actually leaving, and you can see her booking down the street. She takes off. Now, wait a minute. If you hate someone and you want someone to die, why would you even get up and go look for them? Wouldn't you just say, oh, I slept through my alarm, or, whatever, or I'm not going to go back. And then when she gets there and she sees him in the 911 call, you hear her frantic. Like,
she's screaming bloody murder. She's screaming bloody murder. Like, you can't fake that. I see people in the trolls in the whatever in the comments, like she scripted that. She did that on purpose. She dropped the phone in the back. Like, you cannot fake that kind of sheer horror. And when you hear Jen McCabe making that 911 call, that even is more creepy. It's like, hi, yeah, there's a man passed out on the lawn. A man passed out on the lawn in the snow. A guy. How about your buddy that you called 17 times since midnight, but you don't even mention that he's a police officer. And the fact that the way this investigation was handled from the very second that they found him, he's a police officer.
Yeah.
I mean, that requires an even higher level. Not that there should not always be a high level of investigating crime scenes of people who are deceased, but when it's a police officer, because in New York, you get upgraded charges for a police officer if you cause the death of a police officer. So, like, WTF? Like, really? And they never mention in any report, not in a witness statement, not in a police, that police officer John O'Keefe was found today at whatever. They never address him as that, and I find that so disrespectful and a glaring omission. And it's just it's wrong.
Yeah, and the thing is I just even go back to even just good old-fashioned detective work. I mean, we've seen this in movies a million times. When there is a dead body somewhere in a house or on someone's lawn, why is someone not walking to the door and going, hello, you have a dead police officer on the lawn? Did you see anything? Why didn't that happen?
Because Jen went inside to tell them and walked right into their house and right into their bedroom, apparently, to tell them that he was dead. And then they say they didn't find out and everybody left. And so, when we got downstairs, they'd already gone. Really? Because there's a leaf blower going on for 2 hours. I went and read that back again today. 2 hours they had that leaf blower going. That didn't make anybody up.
Yeah, right.
What say you? I mean, come on.
Well, Suzanne says, thanks for the 10, by the way. Appreciate it. Say they extrapolated her blood alcohol content to between 0.13 and 0.29 at 12:40 a.m. That is not how a blood alcohol decreases at all. It should be approximately 0.02 per hour, correct?
I'm not an expert in extrapolation, but I will say that range, 0.13 to that's a huge range. They should be able to narrow it down a little bit better than that. Because that's like, I don't know what your legal limit is in Massachusetts. Like
0.08.
it used to be I think they keep reducing it, right? So at one time it was 0.1 and then it keeps going down. So that's like saying she was like over the limit and then double over the limit. That's just way too far of a range. So I don't even know that evidence would come in at trial because we're not at trial yet and we may not get to a trial, but I have questions about that.
I had actually a quick question, and then if you don't mind, can we take some questions from the audience if they type them in for you? Okay. So now all that has happened, I felt like the hearing the other day was amazing. I think it was a very pro Karen, very much in good standings for Karen. So now that Yannetti has come out and said the letters, we have the withdrawn from the motion from the Commonwealth. What is kind of happening now behind the scenes? Could you shed any light on that? Like what possibly could be happening?
Well, those letters have now, I don't know if the judge, I don't know what time they filed the motion to withdraw their opposition or, so were the letters released yet? Does anybody know? I'm sure they're on Twitter. Like, I'd love to see the letters.
All that
what do you
I've
think the
seen
letters
is the
say?
document that we read. That's it, that I know of right now.
Yeah, so that was just a withdrawal of the motion. He's not going to oppose it. He's going to say, okay, release them. So now she can unimpound them. She might not do it because today's Friday, right? So it may not be done until Monday, but I'm sure that those letters are going to say something like, hey, back off. Why are you investigating? Like whatever it is going to show some sort of consciousness of some maybe wrongdoing. So after that happens, then they've got the motions hearing on February 15th, right? And they're going to have the motion to disqualify the DA and for sanctions, and also the motion to dismiss the indictment. And that is going to be fire because they're going to get all this new information now from the feds that are going to help their case because according to the U.S. attorney, in good conscience, he cannot let this case go to trial without turning over this evidence that they've discovered during their grand jury proceedings and this whole other FBI side investigation of the investigation. So that's going to be the date to watch. It's February 15th.
And I mean, this is a dumb question. I don't know. Can the Fed step in and stop this now? Or can a higher court get involved and stop this? Like, how does that work?
Well, I don't, again, Massachusetts, everything's kind of, different there, so I don't know specifically. And we don't like to hypothesize or pontificate. But let's see based on what gets turned over, and they already have this motion to dismiss pending, right? So it's a motion to dismiss the indictments based on the grand jury proceeding, and the transcript of the grand jury is attached. So everyone who testified at Karen Reed's grand jury, all of their testimony is attached. So now what if all of these people, because we saw Colin Albert was served with a subpoena from the FBI to go testify. I don't think he testified at Karen Reed's grand jury. So what if the witnesses that all testified for her now came to the FBI's grand jury and testified a different way? I mean, that would make that motion to dismiss very difficult for the judge to not grant. So
it's going to get interesting.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. And I've never seen anything like this in 30 years. I've never seen this happen.
I mean, you couldn't write this.
I mean, Whitey Bulger is the only person,
Yeah.
the only thing that anybody could come up with where the FBI got involved in investigating that investigation.
I think like you said, I mean, you couldn't even write a movie script about this. It's crazy. It's so crazy. Let's do this. Let's take some questions from Melanie. If you want to have a question, if you have a question for her, just type in the chat queue and then put your question and I'll pull them up. I can't get to everybody, of course, but we'll pull up some good ones here. So we'll give people a couple minutes here to type in and we'll take some questions. I did I did open up the chat a little more. I'm just trying to keep it on 30 seconds because if you just let it go, no,
Oh,
you can't see anything.
right,
Everyone
exactly.
said, FOMO sucks. There's 1,100 people in here. We got to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, February
Yeah.
15th will be the next hearing, which we're super. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So here's a question. What do sanctions actually mean?
It's like a punishment. Usually it's money.
Yeah.
Usually they want money sanctions or some other kind of public embarrassment punishment. It's like a punishment.
Oh, is a good one. Melanie, if you were part of the defense,
Penalty.
if you could question one person, who would it be and what would you ask? Oh, I
Oh
like that.
man, that's a good question. I think if I would Jen McCabe would be my go-to witness,
me
I think,
too.
on this, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Why were you awake all night? Why were you, a lot of questions. Why were you Googling that at 2:27? Why did you go into your sister's house? Did you call her from the car? After you called on, when you called 911, why were you so calm? Why didn't you mention that it was your friend? Why did you only mention that it was a man passed out in the snow? Why did you then sneak into your sister's bedroom after, did you call her on the phone from the car? Because, we have your cell phone records right here. So, you could lie, but then we'll impeach you with them. And then also, why did you, when you told Karen to come to your house in the morning, because you guys are going to go look for John, why didn't you call your sister then and just see if he was there? Why didn't you call her? Oh, but you did call her because we have the receipts. Oh yeah. And then why did you, instead of just going straight over there to look for him, why did you then insist that you drive Karen back to John O'Keefe's house where she just left from and knew that he wasn't there? But why? Why did you do that? And then why did you get in a different car to go? Like, there's so many questions that I would have for her.
Can we get a mic drop in the chat, please?
Like, and not even like maybe, who knows what she was thinking, but I want to know what she was thinking. And I think just from her testimony alone, you would have enough reasonable doubt for a jury to say, jurors don't leave their common sense at the door. You come into jury duty with all of your experiences and your life and everything that's happened to you, and you have certain opinions on certain things, and you're not going to believe the BS. You're going to be like, okay, yeah, that doesn't really make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, where's the dog? Where's the dog? How do you just
why did they sell the house so
get
early?
get rid of your family pet?
Yeah.
And selling the house, and like, I'm not even saying that what happened to him would have caused a lot of blood, let's say, right? If you bash someone in the back of the head with, let's say, I don't know, like a plate from a weight set, right? And you bash him in the back of the head and cause a skull fracture, there might not be a lot of blood, right? We see this on things all the time where you smack somebody in the head with a baseball bat. Like, there's not always a ton of blood, right? But the whole thing, like everything, you just add everything up. It's the cumulative effect of all of the evidence, or lack of evidence, or evidence pointing in another direction, that just makes you say, huh.
I agree. Yeah.
Right.
Rick has a question. Says, could the feds get the ring footage from Albert or across the street neighbors?
That's what we're seeing right now, is all of these motions to get all of this discovery from people who are non-parties. And that's why it was so hard for them to get Brian Albert's cell phone records, because he's a non-party. And like, the judge just really doesn't want to give anything. That's why they had to do an appeal they had to go up on appeal for that, for the Jen McCabe records and stuff. And so it's hard to subpoena somebody else's stuff. But here's the thing also, it's only stored for a certain amount of time. So if it's not time, if you don't get it or try and get it right away, I think it's gone. I don't know how long Ring keeps their footage. And I think the neighbor, who is also a Canton PD, right?
Yep.
Said either his footage didn't show anything.
Yeah, it didn't work. Didn't show.
He said, but I think what he said was it didn't show anything.
Right, it would have the direct site to where Karen's car was pulled up.
It would show, and or where the Ford Edge might have been pulled up at a certain time. Right? But it didn't show anything. But if she hit him right there, it would have shown that. So again, absence of evidence.
So Midlife Nancy asks, can a witness perjure themselves if they never signed statements?
Great question. Such a great question. And no, the witness will be like, that's not what I told him. I didn't tell him that. There's no recording. None of these statements were recorded, either just with audio or with video. None of them were signed by the witnesses. So they could just say, I didn't tell him that. I can't help what he wrote down. It's like when you go into the hospital, right? And you tell them how you were injured or what happened or how many beers you had, and they write it down. Like, you're not in control of what they're writing down. They might have misheard you.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, if you didn't make that record, you didn't write it down. So and they can perjure themselves based on what they testified to in the grand jury, because
Mhm.
that is a sworn to
Yep.
proceeding. They're under oath,
100%.
right? But at a grand jury, it's only one side. It's only the prosecution. The
Right.
defendant's not there, and the defense attorney is not there. So they used to say in New York, you can indict a grand jury in New York would indict a ham sandwich. Famous quote by Saul Walkler.
That's great. So Heather asks, when this doesn't go to trial, when can they go after everyone else? So it's really a speculative question because we don't know what's going to happen. You know, obviously
Mhm.
the outcome here, we want Karen to walk out of court on the 15th and it gets dismissed. Let's just say that does happen.
Right.
We'll just scenario this. If that does happen, now who goes in to investigate the portion of like the people inside 34 Fairview?
Well, it's going to depend on what the FBI has found out during their investigation. Maybe they found out maybe they've got very strong evidence against another third party culprit, because that's the defense here, right? They could be arrested that day. They could be arrested.
Wow. Can you imagine that?
The second that her indictment is dismissed, they could go out and arrest somebody else. They could arrest somebody else now if they have the reason to believe that they could flee or hide or run away, and then dismiss her. So anything can happen. This is like edge of your seat kind of stuff right here.
It's crazy. Yeah, this is a good question. And we'll go to midnight. Can Karen
Yeah.
sue the Commonwealth after this?
Again, it depends on the laws in the state of Massachusetts. You know,
Mhm.
false prosecution. I mean, if she can show that this was a deliberate attempt to frame her, she may have a good case. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, you see people getting out of jail who have been in jail for 20 years who are then freed based on DNA evidence now, and they go back and they sue the state. And they can get millions of dollars for false incarceration. But this, I mean, this could be shown to have been an intentional false prosecution.
Yeah, real quick, it says Keith asked, what are the questions? The focus is Proctor, not Morsi.
Could be. We have there's a lot of possibilities here. It's like spin the wheel. You know, it's like throwing a dart at a dartboard, you know. There's a lot of potential targets here. So, you know, listen, the DA works with the evidence that law enforcement gives them, right? They're not going out and doing their own investigation. So they're going to base their prosecution based on the evidence as it's brought to them by law enforcement. And here's the case, and here's everything we have, and here's all the evidence that we gathered, and here's our statements, and here's all this. And then the district attorney decides to prosecute the person, and that's their case. So it's based on what's given to them.
Yeah, Nick makes a good point. He says feds are going to come in with the geofencing and then it's game over. A lot of people forget about that stuff, the geofencing.
I haven't done a big deep dive into that, but
it's basically just going to corner everybody together and they're going to say you were all there.
Yeah.
And you know, a perfect example of that, and I always point this out, if you want to watch amazing testimony about geofencing and I'm losing the name of it, but just data in general. I'm breaking this down into very layman right now, and I know cast information. I'm sorry. Go watch the segment of the Murdaugh trial where they have the FBI agent that actually talks about cast and geofencing, and literally puts Murdaugh like I think 6 inches from the murder scene at all times. It's amazing testimony. I've actually thought about bringing that up because I don't think people realize nowadays how important I think cast information going forward in the future of law enforcement and trials, how important that's going to be, because guess what? We carry these things everywhere.
I know. Listen, if you're going to do something, leave your phone at home. Why is everyone so stupid? Like, everyone knows this. We watched the Murdaugh trial. Snapchat is what did him in my opinion. All of this social media is bad, bad, bad. It's bad. All these electronics, bad. Bad. They know where you are at every minute. They know what you're doing. They know what you're watching. That's why you get targeted ads. I mean, it's kind of like Big Brother is watching, you know. Remember I had to read that book like in high school, 1984, and Big Brother was watching was the thing, and Big Brother's been watching for a long time.
Let's see.
Cameras everywhere.
Nick says Proctor only got geofence for Google and not Apple phones.
Yeah, I heard that too. Androids, right?
Okay, here. Court
And you
says,
knew that everyone had an iPhone.
Court says, I thought the feds wouldn't prosecute a murderer. Who would prosecute the third party culprit?
Well, it would have to go back to the DA's office, but then they're going to say, but the DA should be disqualified because they're clearly biased and they completely bungled this. So send it to another county. I'm not sure. Again, that's all Massachusetts procedure. And I'm sure that a Massachusetts attorney would have a better answer, but yeah. You are correct.
The Logic asks, how do we even know how fast she was backing up? Where's that evidence coming from?
Yeah, I don't know either. Where is that evidence coming from? That was just their theory?
I think it's just their theory, but wouldn't they be able to extract that probably from the actually CPU in her computer in his car as well too, to see if it made any start and stops or hits or anything? I mean, that would be all in there under that data. So, and I think Jackson has talked about that in one of the hearings, the extraction of the car data, because that's big in cases too, especially with automotive vehicle accidents, and I'm sure you've probably dealt with stuff like that because you've done auto accidents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that it would be in there and they would have that black box info and they would say it shows that she hit something at this specific time, and you would think that it would be in there. And maybe the FBI or the Attorney General would take over the investigation of the third party culprit because it was a police officer.
Suzanne asks, Melanie, can we remove qualified immunity if the parties involved knowingly committed crimes in their case against Karen Read?
I think that's a question that would require way too long of an explanation, and we don't have enough time on the show, Suzanne, but it's a great question.
Let's see real quick. Double says, if this is intentionally done, can the DA and the officers involved lose their qualified immunity?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, this is like Massachusetts law, right? And Massachusetts really is unique in its laws. I mean, Massachusetts is one of 4 states in the United States that does not recognize the journalistic privilege, which there was a hearing about the other day for the Boston Magazine notes.
Right.
So I don't want to give you the wrong information because I'm not admitted to Massachusetts, only New York. So
right. And then just real quick, Nancy asked, does the DA have immunity?
Immunity from what?
Yeah.
If it's found that he prosecuted this in bad faith and he knew that she was not guilty and somebody else was guilty, they can go after him. He can be disbarred. I mean, there's a lot of issues here.
Just trying to go back and see if I have a couple more questions. Let's see. Do you think the prosecution is skating on thin Brady violation?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they turned over everything. They turned it over so late. It's very I think there's so many issues with this. So many issues, but I think like we're saying, everything is going to, I think, be resolved very soon after the FBI releases all this information to both sides. There's going to be some closed door meetings maybe, and they're going to have to try and save face if what I think is coming is coming. So it remains to be seen. HUMINT.
Yeah.
It's not my area. I'm again, Massachusetts.
So Caroline asks, what about the evidentiary hearing? How was it canceled the way it was, Bev? There's so much lead up to it, and then boom, canceled.
The evidentiary hearing where they had subpoenaed Brian Albert and Jen McCabe to come and testify, and then they got the subpoenas quashed. Yeah, and then there was some talk among the parties that it wasn't going to be a hearing, and then she made them go ahead and argue that motion when they weren't prepared to. There's a lot of issues.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, Nick. Maybe you caught it. If you just do a quick summary again, if anybody missed that, because I see a lot of people asking. Can you just explain?
Yeah, it's a Supreme Court case, and it is a process that the federal government has to go through in order to use federal documents that they have generated during the course of an investigation in a case that they are not a party in. They have to go through certain procedures before they can release those documents to people, to the sides in another case. So it's just like jumping through hoops before they can release this information to Karen Reed's attorneys and to the prosecution in the Karen Reed case. That makes
Okay, I'm
sense?
going to take one more question, and then Melly was kind to give me about an hour and a half, so we're getting to that, and I just want to do a final wrap up with her and just get some final thoughts, and I just want to hear her talk on this case. So this is going to be the last one we take. Would the prosecution's office be forced to prosecute the real perps if the feds figured out the real story? Ooh, it's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I can they force them to? I mean, that's, the wording of that question. It's going to depend on how much evidence they have. Yeah, and if they found out who the real perp is, yeah, 100%.
I got a question, and before we do our final wrap up,
Mhm.
let's say, what we all think, like you said, we don't really know what happened in the house, but we all have a very strong speculation of what happened in the house.
Mhm.
Let's say this goes in, there's a fight, and John hits his head, and essentially he's hurt. If they would have called 911 instead of covering this up,
Yeah.
what do you think might have happened? Do you think that this would have just been an
I
accident?
think their friends would have come and investigated it and said it was that's what I think would have happened. But now it's going to
Why
be
go through
far,
all of
far
that?
worse.
Right. It's crazy. And I
Yeah.
keep thinking about that. When did it, in my opinion, get too crazy? And then now you're covering it up. Like,
Right,
why?
right.
You probably could have just stopped at one point and said, look, he fell back, he hit his head. We're sorry. Here's 911.
And the
Like,
dog jumped in trying to
so what
protect
is
me
the
because that's what they
so
do.
then it goes deeper. What is the reason? Why did it keep going past? Is there something else there? Is it something the feds found
To
in
protect
this
somebody?
investigation?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've heard, word on the street,
Right. I've heard a
that
lot
there
of
was
words
some
on the street.
beef between the neighbors,
Mhm.
that John O'Keefe and his neighbors, there was some beef there, maybe.
I've heard a lot of
Maybe,
theories. Mhm.
Maybe he was being investigated for something and they wanted to make him not investigated. Maybe, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. And that's why I don't like to speculate because we've all heard the rumors.
Mhm.
But if that can be, if that stuff can be proven, it goes to motive, right?
Oh, real quick,
Why
kinda
did
like
they hide the fact that Colin Albert was in the house? And now Jennifer Kopendorfer last night said a 17th, like she's admitted almost that he was there. And she seems to have a lot of inside information on this case, a lot more than we do. So, and
Right.
please don't bash her personally. Please don't. Please, please.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah, of course.
She and I disagree on things. We have differences of opinion, but there's so much vitriol involved in this case, and just like
It was
mean people just coming out of the woodwork to just be mean to each other. It's terrible.
I have to admit though, I did love the segment you did, and just at the end, she's like when you kind of got her at the end, and she's like,
Oh, did
"Yeah,
I do
you
that
got
or
me."
she did
She's
that?
like, "You got
Oh,
me this time." Coffindaffer was like, "You got me this time."
I don't
So
know. I got to go back and watch the reactions because I kind of watched it. I didn't
I
really
did.
watch it because I
Yeah, it
showed it
was
on my
good.
channel, but I wasn't really watching it because when
You
you're
were
doing
there.
something,
You
you're
were
trying to do
on
like
it.
10 other things, and it's like so nice to be on someone else's show and not have to like do anything except just talk and like not worry about everything that's going on.
So real quick, we'll do this and we'll get a final thought. Danielle asking, an autopsy tell how much blood someone has actually lost?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm not a medical examiner or a doctor, but I would think that I don't know. I really genuinely don't want to give you the wrong answer to that question.
Sure.
But I would think that based on the injuries, they would be able to ascertain blood loss or how much blood would be caused by these injuries. But you're talking about a fractured skull. Not a lot of blood back here,
Right.
It's not like in the Idaho 4 where there were slashings and knives and blood spurting everywhere. Like that
Right.
murder scene was
Brutal.
covered in blood.
Yeah.
If somebody falls and smacks their if you see people crime scenes where people fall down the stairs, right? And die because they whack their head on the bottom of the stairs. Usually that's not a bloody scene.
Kind of like boxers' injuries when someone
Yeah.
gets hit. If you ever watch a
Mhm.
boxing match,
No.
those injuries,
But I know what you're saying.
those injuries were very close
I
to
don't
some
like that.
boxer
Yeah, but
injuries.
right.
All
Right.
right. Quick final thought. If you can rate Karen's team 1 to 10, what would you give it?
Oh man, they're getting 10s from me. I feel like we're holding up the sign like the Olympics, 10, 10, like for the ice skaters. I mean, I think they're doing a fabulous job. I really do. Yeah, I can't say enough nice things about them. And no, they're not paying me to make these videos. Why do people think that?
And I want to make sure that everybody understands. I did not pay Melody for this. She wanted to come on and do this, and she's sure I'll come hang out. So a lot of people go, "Oh, you pay good."
No. I was in Cancun with my sister, and I was like by the pool, and I saw you tag me in a post, and you were doing the review of the dog show.
Mhm.
I said, "Oh my God, check this out. Like this guy's doing a reaction video to my video. That's so cute or hilarious or whatever." And then when we got back to the room that night, we watched it and she's like, "Oh, he's so nice. He's so nice. You have to go on his show." Cause I think you said during that show, "Melanie, if you ever want to come on my show."
Of course.
So then she's like, "You have to go on the show." So Jules, thanks for that. And, yeah, so that's how it happened. No, we don't. People have this like misconception, like we're making millions of dollars over here on the YouTube, and this is like it's almost not worth all the like the hatred and the vitriol that we get for doing it. But I do it because I feel like when I see something out there that makes me so mad that I think I need to stick up for somebody or speak out about something that I find is unjust, I'm not afraid to talk about the tough topics, and that's why I do this. I'm not doing it for money or clicks or likes because I'm way too old to care about that kind of thing. So
I do this because my friend did not get justice in his case. The two people that were responsible for it at the time here, the fucking laws in Massachusetts, they suck, and especially when they did back then in 1994 when my friend was murdered. They did a combine of about 8 months and walked, and they knew who did it. And because the DA in the state or the Commonwealth, they bobbled the case, and you can go back and watch the stream if you want to have the stream up. And I literally took because we used to read newspapers, kids.
That's right.
I took all the newspaper articles and scanned them, and I went through a chronological order of what happened in his case, and they bobbled it. And the two people that were responsible literally did about 8 months and walked.
So they were convicted, but they were just being held.
So one took a plea, but then something got fucked up and he ended up getting out. And then the other defendant ended up going to trial, but the state bobbled evidence and procedure, and literally it got to the deadline and he walked. It's a crazy case.
So well, email me the link. Yeah. I'd like to watch it. Yeah, that's horrifying.
So final thoughts. Where do you think we go from here? What do you expect on February 15th with all this amazing discovery that we've just gotten here in the last couple of days?
Well, I think we haven't seen what they have yet, so it'll be interesting, and I'm sure he's going to add that to his motion. And I think that's going to be a day to watch. You don't want to miss that live court streaming. And the one good thing about Massachusetts law is that they do allow cameras in courtrooms. So that's good. We don't allow that in New York, which is why you don't see any of the trials here being televised. The whole Trump trial that just went on, that was not Ghislaine Maxwell, like none of that stuff was televised. It's, you have to rely on the courtroom sketch artist and, people live tweeting from the courtroom. So we're going to get to see it. I think it's going to be a great show. And, that both of those motions are under seal. So we can't get a hold of we can't read the court papers. Right. We don't know what's in them. And it could be explosive. And the reason is because I think there's so much in there that they don't want crazy YouTubers like us getting out there and, making crazy conspiracy theories or something, Yeah. I mean, they're locking it up tight like Fort Knox.
I will be there in court in person with the Karen Reed supporters. So I've been out there the last couple of court dates and filming and talking to all the locals down there. It's great because I only live 20 minutes from there. So
wow.
It's been an honor and a privilege to meet with all those supporters and getting to know them and know their stories. And, they all have the individual stories of how and why they got involved in this. And they're just really staunch, die-hard supporters that will go all the way to the end until Karen Reed is free, and I think it's just great.
I mean, and it's because people don't like to, because people know this could be you.
Yeah.
This could be you. And when Jennifer Coffenhofer's like, who is she? She's nobody. No, she's everybody.
She is us. She's we the people. She is. You know,
I
she
don't
is
get
weak
it.
people. Carrie H, thank you so much. This is my queen moderator and
Yay,
friend and
moderators gets
confidant.
all the love.
Yeah, and friend and confidant. I appreciate it. She's
It's a
a
hard
huge
job.
supporter of my channel. She says, "Thank you, Melly, for your sharing your expertise and opinions. This was an awesome collaboration."
Oh,
Thank
that's amazing. Thank you, Carrie, for all the work that you do. I have one question for you and for the chat,
you. Hmm.
because you know, I handle true crime like you do. And historically, since I started my channel 6 months ago, YouTube gives you tons of analytics, right? Almost like too much analytics, like you're inundated with data. And my channel has always been around 90% women, 10% men. I have noticed since I started covering this case, a lot more men are involved and covering and interested in this case than most other cases that I've covered. So my male viewership has gone up by at least 10%. And I'm wondering, to the people in the chat and to you, why do you think that is? Why do you think more men are interested in the Karen Reed case than they are about like the Long Island serial killer, Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Frankie and other things like that that have been so, you know, Idaho 4, Adam Montgomery,
I
you know,
think for
things like
me,
that.
I think for me, the reason that I got attached to this is I went through and not saying that it's domestic violence, but I went through a lot of domestic violence in my childhood. I saw it in front of my face. So I saw how a woman was mistreated by, you know, in my case, a man, but in this case, it's the system. And I think that's what really attracts me to it, is that, you know, I just think that, and I think just the evidence as well too. I mean, just seeing everything, you're like, this is so impossible,
Yeah.
you know. And I think, you know, like I said, it's just I feel for her in that position, and then it goes back to my friend, you know, being murdered, and I've been through suicide. You know, I've been through suicide. My brother committed suicide, so I've been through all that pain and anguish, and I know what that does to someone in their life. And it's just like, you know, you got like, no one's fighting for this woman. They're just like,
Right.
she fucking did it. You know,
Yeah.
she's guilty. And it's not true. You know, that's just not true, you know. And I think someone needs to stand up and fight for her and be a voice, you know, because
I mean, I love it that the men
yeah,
are,
yeah,
you know, getting out there with signs. And a
yeah,
lot of people in the chat are saying it's because it involves police officers, you know, because Karen's hot, um,
sure.
because, you know, Turtle Boys skews towards men. And so they got interested in it because of him. But a lot of people are like, and then one of my mods is in here and he says, because a lot of us who follow true crime are retired law enforcement,
Mhm,
and we see what's happening here with this investigation and we're offended by it, you know?
mhm, yeah.
Um, so interesting.
I think, you know, the internet, the power of the internet has done some pretty amazing things, and it's done some pretty shitty things too. But I
Mhm.
think that the great thing about this is that we can come in and have a public forum like this to discuss these things and get this information out to let people know, because this could be your community. This could be your sister, your brother, like someone said, your mother, your son. And a lot of people nowadays don't fight for their rights. And especially here, you know, I live in an extremely liberal state, and I'm not trying to get crazy with politics here,
Right.
but we know how thick the system can be here. And it's in, you know, if we don't fight back and we continue to let these courts push us around, the only thing that we are able to do at that point is bend. And you can't, because when
Mhm.
something is wrong, there's nothing wrong with you standing up for it and fighting for it.
Right.
You know, there's just nothing wrong. Sorry, my passion's coming out a
No,
little bit
I
right
know.
now.
I get that way too. So my New York accent comes out, but Charlene in the chat says John O'Keefe is your brother, your father, and your
Yeah.
husband. And that's the way I feel too. Like, all right, not only is this woman being railroaded by a whole bunch of tough guys, right? And apparently all of these people went to high school together. And I read it somewhere that they were like high school royalty, right?
Mhm.
So remember like every mean girl and every dick that you ever met in high school that are all like, you know, and it's still like that. Like people, I guess, never leave that town. And so there's just this like sense of
Cult.
entitlement. Yeah. And like there's never been any ramifications for our behavior. So why should we change our behavior kind of thing? And
Yeah.
you look at it as an outsider and you're like, what is going on here? Like, how is this allowed to happen?
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to discredit Turtle Boy at all in this, because he's the
No.
one that blew this wide open and did amazing investigation
Yes.
and gave us this stepping stone to continue to do this, you know, what we're doing, you know. I went to his team and said, what can we do to help? And they just said, keep talking, get more people involved, collaborate, you know, get this out there. Because the more people we can reach and get, like I said, get eyes on this, it's only going to help this case. Because we need to wake people up, you know. And again, I'm not against the system. I'm not against law enforcement. I'm not against any of that. But there is something majorly wrong in Karen Reed's case. I mean, for Christ's sakes, sorry, the feds are involved. Like, wake up, people.
That never happens, you guys. It never happens. It never happens. So it's really very vindicating and very validating, I think, for all of you guys who have been screaming about this case, and Turtle Boy has been screaming about this case for a long time. I hope that there's some comfort in that, at least for now. But hopefully justice will be served for John O'Keefe, because really that's what this is about. And he is a police officer. So where's all this, like, you know, somebody came into my comments today and said, I'm very offended because you talk a lot about police corruption. Like, every other word out of your mouth is police corruption. And I'm like, no, that's based on one case of the Long Island serial killer. So when people say this could never happen, I say, yes, it can. I've seen it in the Long Island serial killer case. It can happen. It does happen, and it will happen again. Not that it happens all the time. There are wonderful cops, just like there are wonderful lawyers. There are bad doctors and good doctors. There are bad priests and good priests. But until somebody talks about it and exposes it, it's just going to keep going in the wrong direction.
Right. Okay, I think that's our cue.
Aiden's
live on
thanks,
the glare
Suzanne.
right now. Okay, thank you so much for letting us know. I'm going to let everybody head over there. Melanie, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this. You're always welcome here at LTL. If you ever want to come back over and hang out, I'd love to have you back over.
Oh, sure. Or you can come on my channel.
Yeah.
Tracy, just before we leave, Tracy, you don't want to ignore that. Yeah, I have not. No, everyone keeps bringing that to my attention. Sandra Birchmore. I'm going to take a look at that. But, you know, there's so many cases every single day. But I will, as soon as I have a free minute. I have heard about that a lot, and I don't know what it's about, but I can't wait to see.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Melanie. Once again, if you haven't subscribed to her channel, please do. Melanie Little, attorney Melanie Little. Her link is attached to the top of the chat. Give her a subscribe. Go check her out. Support her on the Karen Reed case or any of the cases that she's following here or dissecting and going through. But I'm sure she's going to be banging away on Karen Reed's case for a while here. And maybe we can get to the root of everything here. It's definitely what we want. Again, thank you so much for being here. And we'll see everybody soon.
Yes, we will.
All right, let me outro here. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
True crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden and mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. True crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned. We dive into the crime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL true crime, unveiling dark realities of the crime. Unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned. We dive into the crime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL true crime, unveiling dark realities.